Suitland, Maryland. The record groups include all of the unit records of the Army pertaining to the Korean War.
Read that for me one more time, please.
Aside from the official records, little exists in print of the subject of Chosin. The unit command reports and other records of the United States Army units that participated in the action east of Chosin are contained in Record Group 407 in the National Archives, Federal Records Center, Federal Building, Number 1, 4205, Suitland Road, Suitland, Maryland.
Okay.
The record groups include all the unit records of the Army pertaining to the Korean War. For the units that fought east of Chosin, the circumstances that led to the tragedy are not documented in records or command reports. There are no records on deposit in the National Archives for the 1st Battalion, 32nd Infantry, the 3rd Battalion, 31st Infantry, or the 57th Field Artillery Battalion for the Chosin Reservoir action in November 1950. I found none when I worked in the records there in 1974 and 75. Several years later, a request to the National Archives for a search of these records yielded the reply that the search had turned up no such records.
And this is coming from Appleman.
Probably none were ever prepared. All the units involved were part of the 7th Division.
That's Appleman, what book?
That's East of Chosin.
East of Chosin. So
And that's page 91. So
the back of that?
So then I got on the back here, I've got Escaping the Trap.
Okay.
Year 1990. Biological Notes, page 400. Only one chapter 5 outlines the CCF attack of the Chosin Reservoir in his book. Page 75 to 154, explaining the details east of the reservoir. Okay, so the big part is here. The Marine volume makes no pretense of covering related Army activities in any detail, although its records do refer to them. This work is an important reference for any attempt to tell the story of 10th Corps in Northeast Korea.
Yeah.
To see what they did say was detrimental to us.
Right.
Like the tanks. In other words, that's saying they didn't get through there. So it says, in other words, like I said in my disclaimer, I cover these overlapping discrepancies as highlighted in this book with this disclaimer. I did not create these discrepancies. I merely highlight them in reference to correct the overlapping documentations between zones assigned and mission required to be seized by existing documents. See, so then I got here the Marine Plan of Attack.
Okay.
See, and that's the part here where I've got here. There are the Marines, in other words, on morning of 27 November, called for the 5th Marine Regiment to pass through the lines of the 7th Marines and lead the attack all the way to Mepyeong-ni. There, the 1st Marine Regiment will pass through the 5th Marines and take the road to the north and continue the advance to the Yalu River. The 7th Marine Regiment, meanwhile, would cover the rear of the 5th Regiment all the way back to Chosin Reservoir. All elements of the 10th Corps during this time will move up and take over the security of the main supply road from the reservoir back to Hungnam. Now I got here footnotes. Smith comments, Colonel S.L.A. Marshall, interview with Colonel Alpha L. Bowser, Jr., G3, 1st Marine Division, 2 January 1951, copy in author's possession, Montrose and Canzona, the Chosin Campaign, page 151.
So confirmation of that information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I go into here. Okay, so now following this up. Now I'm going into, let's see where am I at here. Oh, I'm following this up, it's over here. It's in this one. It's following up on Rowe's book.
Mhm.
Now Rowe is, he was an S3 or an S2, which is intelligence officer for the 7th Regiment, the 7th Marine Regiment. Okay, now this is one of five, where he wrote
What's the title?
the destruction of the 31st Infantry, a tragedy of the Chosin campaign,
Okay.
by Patrick R. Rowe, Major, United States Marine Corps, retired. Okay, so I'm going over here on, here's a map here, but here's where I'm getting into, what he was saying. Let's see. I'm sure it's in this first one. Okay. Here was where he's putting the outline of what I just wrote to you. Okay, problems arise. Okay, well here, problems arise. Alman planned to launch an attack west on the morning of the 27th. Completely redeployment for the attack would involve the movement of the following units. 1 battalion of the 7th Division would move from Oral Ree to Chosin. 1 battalion. 2 battalions of the 7th Division would move from the Pukchong Haisinjan axis to Chosin. See, in other words, you're up there, you're moving them back.
Yeah.
See where we're involved. Okay, the 5th Marines with attachments will move from east of the reservoir to U.N. Okay, elements of the 3rd Infantry Division will relieve the 1st Marines at Chin Hung Ni and Koto Ri. Now get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is Smith has admitted in that Changjin, and I think like 67 of the Changjin Journal, which Vasula wrote, his boundary line is north of a line just south of Hagaru. And now this is what
and Rowe confirms that.
He is validating here.
Rowe confirms it.
Elements of the 3rd Infantry Division would relieve the 1st Marines at Chin Hung Ni and Koto Ri. Now you can't relieve them because they won't move. He's leaving a battalion of each one back there at the 1st. So okay, so the next one. So okay, the 1st Marines with attachments will move from Chin Hung Ni and Koto Ri to Hagaru.
And give the concentration that Smith had wanted all along, supposedly.
What he's asked for and begged for, he
Yeah.
got it. Alman gave him everything. So the 1st Marine Division command post, would move from Ham Hung to Hagaru. 10th Corps command post would move from Ham Hung to Hagaru, which would normally you want that the strongest effort. You got Smith moving up there, and you got the 10th Corps command moving up there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that would be the strongest position? You
No.
got 2 headquarters.
You can't get more concentrated than that.
In addition, there the need to move supplies and ammunition to support all of those units moving to the chosen area.
Yeah.
See, so redeploying so many units over long distances required trucks the Corps did not have. Disposition of Corps units over a huge area has severely strained transportation assets. To augment available transportation, 10th Corps had taken away 2 companies of the Marine 7th Marine Transport Battalion, although that battalion had been mobilized and deployed by the Marine Corps to give the 1st Marine Division some parity with Army divisions of motor support. In addition, 2 provisional truck companies have been organized with vehicles and various corps troops mobilized in Hamhung. In Japan, some base units had been stripped of trucks, used contracted Japanese transportation instead in order to augment transportation for both 10th Corps and 8th Army. Now see, that's where I got in that I had this thing, like again, getting into what we were running with the Marine stuff. That's where I found this one. And I thought, where'd I put that darn thing, you know? And I found I said, a comparison of the motor transportation available to an infantry division and a Marine Corps division, including the non-organic operations, 7th Marine Transport Battalion is as follows. Trucks, 1/4 truck, 4x4, Army, 1,020. Marine Corps, 592. They're not meant to move the men over land like, like that. Trucks,
Yeah.
3/4 ton, and 1.5 ton cargo. Army, 336. Marines, 63. Trucks, 2.5 ton, 6x6 cargo, 621. Marine Division, 436. Truck, and they all had keys in their ignition.
Oh yeah?
Truck, 2.5 ton, 6x6 SP are 120, so they're one above us on that. They got 125. So they're talking about the transportation. But within this volume of work here from the Marines, they had said, like Martin Rush says, there's 10,000 Marines back at the coast.
And reserve.
10,000 of them back at the coast. So in here is the amphibious, the Amtraks, will substitute for truck drivers on bringing supplies up the road.
Well, let me be clear about something though. If you got 8,800 at UWME, you got 10,000 in reserve at Hung Nam. The entire Marine Corps is 75,000 strong, but you got 25,000 at work.
Slightly over. They're slightly over. Every time you see it, they are reinforced. They always put 1st Marine Division reinforced.
I mean,
So they're over 25,000.
but only 15,000 are at Kodo Ri or higher.
Yeah, say like maybe.
Or I'm sorry, lower than that, because they were running the major platoon, the MS
So
Harvard.
figure supportive with your artillery and your tanks and everything. Say 5,000 per battalion.
So
To get 15,000.
so basically 2 battalions from
With
Hoggaroo to
everything.
UWME, and then you got
Yeah,
Chesty
at
Puller and his
their
keys
rate.
down at Kodo with
Yeah,
5,000 more. Okay, and then
But
10,000 in reserve.
But then what got me was on his first page up here, I couldn't understand this. I said, I still don't understand it. In other words, like you said, Drake has the whole tank company up there.
Yeah.
He says, this is rare, seldom, but he's got the whole regiment up there. He says, seldom would this happen. He's only got 22 tanks. And then I'm reading in this Marine stuff, it says, in other words, they've got 1,423 medium tanks. So I go, what's the difference here, you know? What would they need so many tanks for? I don't understand that stuff.
Where they got them?
The first tank battalion reveals a provisional tank platoon. During the morning, moving to Chinhung-ni, the provisional platoon made up of 1,423 medium tanks, was formed to provisional. See, these things are. See, I tried to make it as dark to bring it out. support, applicant support for the 5th and the 7th Marines. In other words,
So
you got
between
four-
Murray and Litzenberg, they've got 1,000 tanks.
Yeah, according to it.
Where?
In addition, it was felt that the relevance of 1,426 tanks on the narrow road being used on the main supply road would be extremely hazardous under something like servicing commitments.
Oh, yeah, it'd be a servicing nightmare.
No difficulties were encountered by the platoon in its prevalence, in its movement to Chenhung-Ni. I never heard of them being up there. And like I said, with Labrie is, says he don't remember any of them being up there. And now it says back in here again that they will serve as a supply going up the route to bring supplies up to them.
As support for supplies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in here too. See, I got this mark where. See, but here again, though, Ron, is where I got here where next page, tanks close at Hagaroo, 30 November, 1,500 hours.
Just to make the point about the keys and the giggles, Chesty Puller said that the Army was in such a hurry to get out of there that they had left the keys in the ignition of the Army Jeeps.
Yeah, I got
which have no keys.
I got a book I picked up, his Life of Chesty Puller.
Mm-hmm.
And he said 4 times in that book that, boy, some of these guys ran and they left the motors running with the keys in the ignition. And I said, what army was he with?
Yeah.
I said, darn it, I said, what, on the day, on June the 25th, 1950, our calendar this year is identical to it.
Oh, really?
I was pulling from 12 to 2, I had guard duty at the motor pool. Now, why do you have guards in the motor pool? Because you don't have any keys. Somebody could steal the truck.
Anybody can drive
And
it
if
away.
he steals the truck, all you can get, that's why that darn number's so big on the hood. You grab the numbers, they get a helicopter or get a plane, try to locate this thing.
Right.
And you're going to steal a big Army truck? I said, God. And he kept saying 4 times. And we had that discussion on that university I was with, that on the discussions on the war. We kept doing that, and that guy says, and finally the guy to run it, he says, the only thing I knew that had a car, keys, is a staff car. Because everything else, you had that cardboard or that leather or whatever that thing was made of for the doors for a 2.5 ton truck.
Yeah.
It canvas. It was a window, cellulite put in it, you know. And there was there's no top to it. It's got a canvas top. And I said, I don't understand where he got that. And then finally one guy said, well, the Marines had them. I said, well, okay, you say you had them. But I said, don't say that.
You never stood guard duty over a Marine Corps transportation unit. Huh?
No. No, that one guy, his name was Stockton. I think he wrote some books or something, but he always thought, that guy was always after me. He says, I even told him, I said, because that guy was saying, he said, let's stick to Korea. So he come on, I said, well, I said, Harold, it was his name. I said, Harold, where are you going to take me today? Are we going to Germany, or what kind of trip we're going to have today? Because that guy was trying to keep us on target, you know. I said, yeah, but and then he writes me. He said, Ray, I want to take this off of the thing and go directly with you. I said, no. I said, that's what this thing is for. We're talking about to let everybody know what we're talking about.
You talking about the Kent State?
Yeah.
Was it Kent State?
No, this
Kansas
was
State.
Kansas State. Yeah.
Kansas State put together a quorum of guys to do interviews and discuss with each other
Yeah, I
the
was
events
telling-
of the
I was
Korean
telling Bob,
War.
I said, I'm glad Bob dropped by. He dropped by my house, you know. Ron, he was talking, Bob was passing Scott Air Force Base on his way out here. And I was asking, you know, I said, drop by the house. Well, he dropped by the house. I said, well, I've got Oliver P. Smith's book, the book by, he's Gentle Warrior. The Gentle Warrior, Oliver P. Smith. And this guy wrote the book. I said, well, in the first place, the title of his book means that you have to make the guy come out a Gentle Warrior. That's the cover of your book. That's the name of your book, you know. So anyway, I put in there, I brought the book with me, and the guy wrote me, and I put in there, I says, a quote. I said, when he put out an oral history, he said, what these Army jokers did when they got back to Hageroo, what these Army jokers did was groan a little bit, and they'd grab a stretcher and lay down on it, and then the corpsman would come on and load them on. So I wrote that to that guy. I said, I think it's kind of disrespectful, him saying, and the guy writes me back. I showed him the letter. I said, he writes me back. He says, I want to tell you, he says, in getting this book together, I have checked and reviewed thousands of documents, and I have never heard the word that you used, Army jokers, that Smith said. He says, so give me your source for this quote. He said, I don't want hearsay. He said, I want an authentic source. I said, okay, I'll give you one. I said, go to the back of your book where you list the numbers of books you've checked. I said, go to Oral History of Donald Knox. And I said the name of the company, where it was, who it was. I said, go to page so-and-so. And it's like Poussin the Chosin, and it's certain quotes from people, just little quotes. And I said, it starts out with, that's what Smith said. So he writes me back, says, well, I admit I was wrong, but you took it out of context. He didn't mean it for everybody. That was
Still
just a few.
still
Well, how do
defending
you
his
know what he
position.
meant? It says he said that. I don't know. You got your authentic quote.
Yeah, this was one of the 10,000 documents you researched.
Oh, this is one too now that set me off with Roe.
With Roe?
This was what set me off because I put it in the book. I quoted Army regulations on this one. Leadership. He's going into this whole thing. In extremis. In extremis.
I don't think we ever talked about this one.
The eventual erosion of tactical integrity and tragic results for the wounded in the truck column. After the block of Hill 1221 had been broken, any function of chain of command ended. Had it remained intact, it would have been apparent, it should have been apparent at the railroad trestle that further resistance was futile and the column was halted for good. As a matter of elementary compassion, the senior officer should have taken the opportunity to surrender the column and wounded. There is nothing whatsoever the Chinese could have done to the surrendered wounded that would have been any worse than that actually happened to them. It might have saved some of the senseless and random slaughter of wounded that did occur. Now he's talking about me.
Right.
I mean, you're going.
Yeah, you're shot
You're
up
going to
too.
surrender me. So I look up military justice. Any officer that encourages a unit to surrender, or their colors are regiment, without proper authorization, shall be punished by a court-martial as directed,
Right, okay.
and results as directed. And I put that in there under this quote. I said, that's a serious matter.
Yeah.
Now here he's coming out. 2 nights earlier, Marine Major John McLaughlin, a Marine, did exactly that when his position of the Drysdale Task Force was cut off, isolated, surrounded, and encumbered with a large number of wounded. McClellan could have gotten away himself. Instead, he chose to surrender on the agreement of the Chinese that they would take care of the wounded. So what's the last line? The Chinese reneged on their agreement, and some of the lesser wounded did manage to escape.
Yeah. Yeah, the graphics of that story too is.
Instead, he chose to surrender and the agreement that the Chinese would take care of the Chinese reneged on their agreement. They agreed on their agreement.
Surprise, surprise.
With Faith dead, and Major Miller, his executive officer, incapacitated by wounds, the next senior man was Major Curtis. Major Curtis did not attempt to take command of what was left of the column. As it ground to a halt at Hudong, he left the column and made his way to Hageru. Asked about it years later, Curtis, then a colonel, said he thought it was the senior man and that he should have assumed or attempted to assume command regardless of the consequences, but said he would probably do the same thing in similar circumstances. He justified it by saying that the column was moribund but unable to resist. Neither he nor any other senior officer have ever admitted to considering the need to surrender in an attempt to save the wounded. Well, like I said, they burned the trucks.
Yeah.
They're already burning the trucks with the wounded in them.
So you're going to surrender to more of that? Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I took that. I said, I take offense to that. That meant me.
Right.
That meant all the guys that come back. But the thing was, see, Smith had no idea. He didn't want us back at Hageru. Because he was worried because when we got back, when he was flying us out, UW crew had 2 days yet to get back to Hageru, which he had ordered them back from on the 28th.
Yeah, you guys were already flying out. They still hadn't
and
started to move.
He had no idea what condition they were going to be in when he got back. So we would just be excess baggage to him.
In the way.
And like you heard Grant say, he said, I believe the man, he didn't want us. He didn't want us.
Alman didn't want responsibility either.
Well, it was like I put in with Alman. Alman had said, Walker wanted, the 5th Marines originally was the 1st Marine Brigade when they put them over there.
Okay.
And they were isolated. They said, well, they'll go over to Japan. Well, MacArthur said, I need everybody I get, put them over in Korea. Well, they did good. They were under Murray. They said they did all right. But then it came back and says, all right, it says, okay, we're going to land at Incheon. So Walker says, I want the 1st Marine Brigade, in other words, to become the 5th Marine Regiment. I want them with me. Well, Walker says, I'm in danger here. I'm trying to hold on. I'm at the stand or die line, almost pushed out of Pusan. He said, I cannot pull a unit out of my system. He said, I can't do it.
Out of my perimeter.
So then it comes up to MacArthur. Says, Smith says, I'll have to call off running one of the beaches, like Green Beach or Blue Beach, if I don't have them. Mm-hmm. So Alman tells him, says, I'll give you the 32nd Regiment. And he says, I don't want them. They're 40% rocks.
Yeah.
I don't want them. I said, what kind of a commander will refuse troops? Any troops on an invasion?
Yeah.
He said, I don't want them. So, and then when Alman's answering him, he says, he finally came to his senses, when I told him I'll give you this regiment. Well, it says, what happened was the Marines, the Navy stepped in. And the Navy says, I've got a solution. He says, let's put the 17th Regiment of the 7th Division in floating reserve. We will rush them in wherever they're needed. In other words, if they're needed at Pusan, we'll rush them in there. If not, we'll rush them in at the Incheon landing.
They'll be the fail-safe.
But they will be
Stopgap.
they will be in floating reserve.
Okay.
And he said, finally, but Smith didn't want them. You know, he just didn't.
Well, didn't he say that 50% of the Marines that he had wasn't prepared to do what they were doing?
Yeah, I got a kick out of that. They said when he left, of course, I know what that is. You know, I said I got enough sense to know that I know and Ron knows as long as he was been in. As many guys that go through basic training, that commander's got to say when you're graduating, you're the best ones ever.
Best class ever.
You know, man, this is the best ones ever. Or, you know, just like they keep saying now, out of all this crap that we got, going into 16 years of unending war, man, there's nothing stronger than the American military. We're down to 1% of our men using, and they don't know what they're doing with them, and they're just using them up 16 years. There's no solution in hand.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah, but I said that's what Smith. Now Smith, it says, because he was making the tour at the time. It says I think in Indiana, he said there was a Marine Reserve outfit, and of course his speech to them was, he said when I left Korea, he said 51% of my men were reservists, and he said in my opinion they were a better division than I brought to Korea.
Which is a
So
stab.
that's the ones we ended up with here until he left in April. That's the one we had at Chosin. So I said, well, I almost have to agree with him.
Did you have any questions, Ron? I'm just kind of. I'm going to take a break right there. Call that part 2.
Take a nap.